It was an idea that came to Jimmy Carter in a dream. Frustrated after losing the White House, Carter told the Atlantic Journal-Constitution about a vision he had for a recreation of the rustic presidential retreat at Camp David, a place that would allow him to continue his work addressing poverty, illness, and democracy around the world, only this time free from the burdens of congressional approval or inter-party politics. And so the Carter Center was born. The former president said he and his wife, Rosalynn, would later talk about whether he was able to accomplish more in the world through the Carter Center than he would have as a second-term president. I think yes, he told the AJC. Joining us now is Karen Ryan, Senior Policy Advisor on Human Rights and Special Representative on Women and Girls at the Carter Center. She worked with President Carter for nearly 36 years. Karen, I just want to ask you simply, what is your favorite memory of working with President Carter?
Thank you. And we are very much still absorbing. We always know this is coming, but it's still a time of sadness and reflection for us. So we appreciate the opportunity to share those thoughts about the Carter Center's work with you. My favorite memory is really the times when he brought people together, like you said in your introduction. His idea for the Carter Center was really to bring people together to solve complicated problems. He never thought anything was too complicated or too hard. The guidance that he gave us, he would say to us, we have to cling to unchanging principles, even in changing times. And so whenever we were facing a problem, whether it was Israel and Palestine or the Congo or human rights violations in Kenya or anywhere, he would say, what is the principle involved? So a memory that comes to me was just today, actually, I got an email and a message from an activist in Kenya. Her name is Ruth Mumbi. She's an activist in Kenya. And while she was at the Carter Center with us at our Human Rights Defenders Forum, she had received threats from the people who had killed her brother, who was also an activist. And so President Carter saw that she was very upset and asked her what was wrong. And she said, I have received these threats. I don't know if I go home, whether I'll be safe. So he took a picture with her. He sent her a letter. She posted it on Facebook, and pretty soon her name was removed from the threat list, and she was able to go home safely. I mean, this is just one example of the kind of solidarity that he showed to human rights activists all over the world. He believed that human rights and democracy really had to come from inside a country, inside a culture. So he would ask us, what can we do to support those who are really fighting that fight and not impose from outside? He often didn't even want to have take credit for things that he contributed to. So that's today I got that reminder from Ruth all the way from Nairobi.
Yeah, as you mentioned, so much of his work, especially in his post-presidency, was behind the scenes and he did kind of quietly. Can you tell us more about the impact he had on the lives of women and girls globally? Somebody posted this great quote from his book this morning where he said, I've become convinced that the most serious and unaddressed worldwide challenge is the deprivation and abuse of women and girls. And it goes on from there. But can you explain why this was something he really wanted to address and what impact he had?
Well, if you read any of his books, you'll see that his mother, Miss Lillian, his wife, Rosalynn, Mrs. Carter, and the women in his life, including Miss Julia Coleman, who was his superintendent in high school, influenced him to stand up for justice. And so he would see the deprivation of women and girls, their rights in the White House. He appointed more women to cabinet positions and and Ruth Bader Ginsburg was elevated to a federal judgeship under his administration. So, you see these actions that he took in the White House, but after the White House, he continued. And so one of the ideas that he really amplified that I think resonated with a lot of people was speaking as a Christian man, a white Southern evangelical Christian man. He said, I see that it's male religious figures in all faiths that misinterpret their scripture to oppress women. And so he would really encourage men to take that on and say, the men, must be more vocal. I got an email from a man after a book talk from that book that he wrote that said after hearing him speak during that book talk, he went home and opened a group at his church for men to really work on violence against women within their community. So he really inspired people to work on violence against women, which, as you said, he saw as the most pervasive and unaddressed human rights violation on earth.
Okay. Karen Ryan, thank you so much for joining us.